Hey everybody, it's Brian Huffsummer once again with class number 6. Before we get started, I want to go over just a comment that I received about spiritual disciplines from last week. And I had a detailed morning routine, and let me go ahead and read this. Somebody in the congregation said, when I was working, meaning this person's retired now, I tried to have a prayer, both intercessory and for my study, then read a brief devo from a book, and read scripture. Usually a read through the Bible in a year type of thing, either chronological or other, and I needed structure because of the schedule that I worked to keep grounded, and it took about 15 to 30 minutes daily. A good example of somebody with a nice working schedule. He then goes on to say, since retired, I have added time to truly study and meditate on the scriptures and allow the Spirit to lead me into deeper and varied study at His direction. Also, I pick up other books, etc., and read, refer to scripture, meditate upon, etc., in addition to other items, at least 2 hours daily, and more as the Spirit leads. Wow, that's amazing. 2 hours daily. So I hope you were able to construct something of a morning routine and start to follow it. I pray that you follow I pray that the benefits follow as much as you can get. Just remember, however you start the day, that likely determines how the day is going to go. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into class number 6. This one is about encouragement. And I know encouragement, not necessarily a spiritual discipline, but hear me out. I think you'll understand where I'm going with this one. Encouragement, it's something that people have talked about quite a bit. It's kind of a Christian word, though not necessarily so. It actually comes from the Latin word meaning heart, the Latin word cor. So it has something to do with the heart, strengthening the heart. I am encouraging you. I'm giving you courage. I'm strengthening your heart. So this is important because if you understand the gospel, if you understand human nature, you also understand how hard it is that human beings struggle just to be human beings, right? And encouragement, what that does is you're actually honoring the human struggle to survive, to make good decisions, to battle against the flesh, to battle against the yeast of the Pharisees, to battle against trials and temptations, to battle through difficult marriages and difficult relationships and difficult moments with your kids. Life is a battle. That's the name Israel, to wrestle with God. Our wrestling with God, with humanity, with conscience, with presence, with this existence. It's what makes us human beings. And when we encourage, what we're saying is, hey, you got this. Struggle through. Get stronger. You can do it. Right? This is why we celebrate heroes and watch sports. Like, one of the most amazing things that you'll ever see is when somebody is excelling at a particular arena in life. Or when you watch sports, you see people who just develop themselves hours on end and apply a lot of discipline. And what we get is we get the greats. We get to see human beings excelling. And there's just something about watching human beings excel that it just calls us to be greater, and it calls us to just be amazed at what human beings can do. And rightly so. And I love this idea that we're all in this together. Romans will tell us that there's not a single human being without sin. Nobody's perfect. That statement is so ridiculous. Of course nobody's perfect. It almost doesn't need even to be said, if you know what I mean. Of course nobody's perfect. We are all in this together. And the more that we recognize this, and the more that we try to view people through their own eyes rather than cast judgment on them, the more encouragement becomes the language of our friendships and the language of our lives. So with that, I would say encouragement is rare. Encouragement is, frankly, it's not something that people experience very much of. I mean, think about this. I mean, when is the last time somebody encouraged you? When is the last time somebody that you know, somebody that you love, or even somebody that you don't know, noticed and acknowledged something good that you were doing, or honored the struggle that you were going through? When's the last time that happened? Hopefully it's happening all the time. Hopefully you get to experience that from your spouse. Hopefully you get to experience that from your kids. Hopefully you get to experience that from your parents or from your friends. But in my experience, it just doesn't happen. And I don't think it's because we're not trying. I think it's because life gets busy and we stop and we just don't notice it. We just breeze past people. We say our little, "Hey, how you doing?" Good, and we keep going. Right? We don't stop to acknowledge the precious, sacred human being in front of us, who is no doubt going through something. No doubt, because everybody's going through something all the time. So I ask you, when is the last time you've been encouraged? I hope it hasn't been too long. Oh, what does it look like? What does it look like to have a strengthened heart and to strengthen the heart of others? Well, first and foremost, I think it's eye contact. A lot of research based on eye contact. Babies need it. They need it so much that if you ever meet a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old, sometimes they will grab your face or grab your ears and they will turn your face towards them so that you're looking at them. Because eye contact means I exist. When I make direct eye contact with somebody, that's what that means. It means you exist. I am validating your very existence. You're not alone. I see you. The eyes say that, and they say it wonderfully without speaking a word. Genuine interest. You can't feign interest. If you're not interested, you will seem distracted. You will seem like somebody is just an inconvenience in your life, or just somebody to be with for just the moment and then to move on to the next thing as quick as possible. Encouragement feels like love and acceptance. To have somebody pay even just 5 seconds of attention, where they know your name, where they look you in the eye, where they're showing genuine interest, and when they ask you questions about what's going on in your life, it feels like love and acceptance. And I would submit that's because it is love and acceptance in action. It feels great. I would also say this is a cure for social anxiety, as well as, I might say, job interviews. Actively practicing encouragement, especially like we're going to talk about later on in this lesson, it is a good cure for social anxiety. Why? Because what happens in social anxiety? I'm thinking about me. Ooh, am I speaking too little? Am I speaking too much? Am I speaking too loudly? Am I too much? Am I a burden? Am I this? Am I that? Right? I'm only thinking about myself. Right? Same thing with a job interview. It's like, ooh, I hope my resume is good enough. I hope I'm look smart enough. I hope I'm good looking enough. I hope my competence is for all to display. Right? Once again, I'm thinking about me, and I'm trying to measure myself based on what I think they would approve of. Right? But let me ask you, what is it people are really looking for? Are they looking for some kind of a social competition where I'm judging everybody around me and they have to be good enough to be in my presence? No. Actually, they're looking for something called the golden rule. Right? You remember the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. It's a great baseline for empathy. Here's what the golden rule means. If I know what feels good when people do it to me, then maybe I should start doing it to other people too. Right? I submit to you, social anxiety, job interviews, any social event, any job interview, any stressful social interaction could be made quite a bit better by focusing on feeding and nourishing the other person rather than trying to figure out how you're coming off. Trying to figure out how much value you have in the other person's eyes and trying to somehow muster your way towards some position of superiority or dominance or value. Right? Isn't that what you want from other people? Do you want them jockeying for position, trying to make awkward, funny jokes? Or, trying to appear competent or trying to look as beautiful as they can just so they can be approved by you? Does that make you feel good? No, that creates a competition with that person. But you meet one person who genuinely comes in the door, makes eye contact, says your name, gladly appreciates that you're in their presence. And that feels good. And I submit to you, those are the kind of people that I want to be around. And so if I become that person, guess what? I become the kind of person that other people want to be around. It's that simple. It's that simple. This is just the power of love in action. So take encouragement seriously. Do you see how this can easily become a spiritual discipline? Something simple like, let's just not think about what's going on with me and how I'm coming off. Let's think about somebody else and feed and nourish them with my words and my attention. And then you know what? It might come back to me. It might come back to me. Last thing I'll mention about what encouragement is, it's active listening. Active listening it's a skill, it's a discipline, it's a whole skill in itself. I would ask you to learn the skill because it's fundamental in all relationships. And it's pretty simple. You watch the people who are really good at it and you'll know. Because they're making eye contact. Sometimes they have their head tilted a little bit, leaning forward. And sometimes they're giving a gentle nod. Sometimes their posture mirrors whatever posture you're using. Right? This happens to human beings without them even noticing it's happening. Just watch this. If somebody's really into your conversation, watch how their posture starts to mirror your posture without them even trying or thinking about it. Right? This is active listening. I am holding space for this person. I am this moment where I am with this person. I am paying 100% attention to them. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not thinking about something else. I'm pushing all of those other thoughts away from me so that I can hold space for this sacred, divine human being just like me. Right? I am valuing them for what they're worth. And I'm letting them know that. Right? That's active listening, and I would ask that you learn what that is. It's too much for me to go into now, but these are the basics. All right? Opposite of encouragement. We have to learn this because, frankly, these are too easy. These are often emotional responses. They are things called criticism and judgment. Right? Criticism and judgment have to do with defining the other person in ways that feels like an attack. The intent and the character are the two biggest ones. The intent meaning the motivation or the reasoning behind why somebody's doing something. Oh, you're just giving me that gift because you want me to like you. Oh, you're just doing this because I don't know. You're just doing this because you think it's going to make yourself look good. Right? Especially when you look at politics. Like, that's all politics seems to be, is criticism and judgment. Oh, I know why this person is doing this, because it must be he's trying to get that. Right? How do you know? You're not God. We can suspect, we can discern, we don't know. We don't know. What about judgment? Judgment is just as worse. That's when you're trying to define somebody's character. It's like, oh, that person's lazy. Really? How do you know? Laziness is a character trait. You know, what do you really know about somebody else? Have you walked a mile in their shoes? Have you spent some time looking at life through their own eyes? Right? But it's like, as human beings, for some reason, it's easier to define the straw man, the person we think they are, rather than to grapple with the real human being who's just as complicated as you are, who has motives and is battling the flesh and is battling this yeast of the Pharisees and this pride of life, just like you and I are, right? We're all in this together. And criticism and the judgment say one thing. We're not in this together. There's people who are winners and there's people who are losers, and I have the ability to tell when you're a loser. I can do it. You're like a child to me. You're less than me. I can define you. This is why it's like an attack. It feels like an attack. And I would say that criticism and defensiveness kills relationships. Kills it. If you've ever been criticized or if you've ever been criticized or judged, or there's a defensiveness that takes root, which the same thing, but in more of a backlash kind of way, you'll notice that those are people that you walk around eggshells around. Right? Because they're non-responsive. They feel like they're better than you. They can define you. You feel like just being around them, you might need to defend yourself. Right? Who wants to be around that? It's very difficult, psychologically damaging, can be very painful. And I would ask you this too, you who might use criticism and defensiveness. Is sin a battle or a deficiency? I think we know where the Bible lands on that, don't we? Is it a deficiency? Yeah, sure, but it's a deficiency that's common to every single human being. Every single human being. And encouragement is what helps us win that battle. And criticism and judgment, those actually basically say, you know what, you're just not good enough. You're not going to win this battle. Gosh, I wonder who said that first, huh? Is there anybody you can think of in the Bible who would say, you're not good enough, you're not going to win the battle against sin, you're just screwed up? I think we all know who I'm talking about, don't we? So criticism and judgment. Let me point out just a couple examples. Telling somebody how they think, how they believe, how they feel. Telling somebody who they are. Sometimes sneakier things like saying you always or you never. Right? Or sometimes just snapping at somebody without even really thinking. This is why we need to have good, thoughtful speech. Anytime I'm defining somebody's character or telling them how they feel or how they think, it's just blanketly wrong. I'm not God, and neither are you. And I would ask you, if people walk around eggshells around you or you walk around eggshells around somebody else, chances are there's criticism, there's defensiveness, and there's some judgment present in that relationship. And they should stop. There's not even necessarily a technique on how to get it to stop. You just acknowledge it and then you stop. Be silent if you have to be silent, because they are that dangerous. It's like kryptonite. Kills relationships. So let's talk about just for a moment how to encourage instead of criticize. I think a major thing is that you aim at somebody's potential rather than somebody's flaws. Right? A good way to think about this is that when I look at somebody who's messing up, like I'm just imagining maybe a kid who's at school and or just struggling with their homework, and I'm with them. What good is it for me to do? Oh, you're just not trying hard enough. Gosh, if you would just apply more discipline, you would get this. Gosh, don't be so stupid. Why are you so stupid? You know this. You totally know this, right? You hear the words that are coming out of my mouth. Do you think that's going to apply more motivation? Do you think we can really shame people into trying harder? Maybe temporarily, but at what cost? Now, on the flip side, what about aiming at potential? Hey, buddy, I know you can do this. Keep at it. I'm with you. You can do this. Same thing happened to me. I remember third grade. Third grade was horrible. Right? Do you see the difference in there? That's encouragement. I'm taking the little divine spark within it and I'm fanning it, so hopefully it grows, rather than trying to snuff it out. It can be that dramatic. I actually have a quote that I really enjoy. It's from Theodore Roosevelt, and it's if you want to look it up for your own perusal, it's called "The Man in the Arena," and let me read it for you really quickly. Theodore Roosevelt says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." You hear what Theodore Roosevelt is saying, is that you who are in the arena are there in a place of vulnerability. You're trying, and so you're going to fail, but you're also going to succeed. And the critic, the one who criticizes, the one just like the Muppets, those two old guys that sat up there, they never got on the stage, and they're sitting here, yap, 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 criticizing all the stuff that's going on. Right? They have no right. They never even tried. They didn't even lift a finger. And there may be some critics in your life that you may have to psychologically just defend against. That in itself could be a spiritual discipline. Just cutting words and people out of your life that damage you. All right? I like the phrase that you have to qualify those people who have your influence. It's like you're holding auditions for people who can influence you, and you only get to pick the wise ones. Because why would you pick anybody else? And boy, at what cost if you're going through life and just letting any old person influence you and speak into your life. Just any old person. Right? I think this is why the Bible talks about being as wise as doves, and as shrewd as serpents. And I think this is also why the Bible talks about not throwing your pearls to pigs or giving to dogs what is sacred. Because if you do, they will turn and they will trample them, and then they will trample you. Not usually with physical violence, but with criticism and judgment. Right? Those people are damaging in our lives, and if we become one of them, we are damaging other people. And what for? For anything good? Not likely. Second thing I would say is, in order to avoid criticism, is that we aim at solutions, not problems. So easy to see the problem. So easy to see the problem. That's not usually for debate, but it takes real work to come up with real solutions. Once again, I'll harp on politics. Man, there's so many political problems that we deal with right now. Who among us can rightfully, humbly say that we have the solution, and that solution is better than any other solution? We might have some ideas, don't get me wrong. We can have opinions. But do we have the solution? Have we taken on giant jobs like police officers and politicians and doctors and nurses and, oh gosh, people in sports? These are all people who take risks every single day, who have to make imperfect decisions. And we may criticize their outcomes, but have we spent any time in their shoes? Have we spent any time being in their position, trying to deal with the high-level things that they have to deal with? Right? And if we haven't, then we should at least acknowledge that and not be so judgmental and so critical. Right? And maybe instead be encouraging, because they're fighting the good fight. And sometimes we're not. We're just watching them do it and hoping that they don't fail, and hopefully not cheering on if they do fail. Jesus says this in the 7 woes when he's talking to the Pharisees. He says to the Pharisees, you tie up heavy loads and you don't lift a finger to help. This has a lot to do with criticism and judgment. You know, there's a lot of really difficult, complicated human issues that we're grappling with in our society today and always, since forever. Right? If you can point out something is wrong, it's easy to stand up on a platform and speak from a position of moral superiority and say, that's wrong, you need to stop. Fine. Let's have our moral stances. But gosh, when it comes time to actually interacting with the people struggling with those things, let's be careful not to tie up heavy loads and then just back away with our hands up, like we can't be a part of the solution, like it isn't our job to redeem the world, when that was our calling that Jesus gave us, right? Let's be very careful with our words when we're going to condemn wrongdoing, unless we also have a solution for how that person might succeed. And maybe, just maybe, if we hold up a picture of what that looks like to the world, they might buy into it, and they might believe us. I think that's our calling. This is the idea of empathy, not judgment. We're in this together. Let me walk in your shoes. Let me see things through your eyeballs. Right? Let's not be so quick to judge. Let's not be so quick to judge. We have 3 good examples in the Bible. First one is from Barnabas. We know in Acts 15, John Mark deserted Saul, who was later called Paul. And when it came time to pick teams again, John Mark wanted to come with. And look at Barnabas. He is known as the son of encouragement. And what he says to Paul is, hey, I know this guy deserted us back then, but let's give this guy another chance. And Paul said, nope, he deserted me once. He's out. And Barnabas, being the encourager he is, he said, you know what, I'll give him another chance. We'll go this way. You go and take, I think his name might have been Silas. You go the other way. And the elders approved. Good. Look, we got a solution. We just divided the teams and we're going in 2 places instead of 1. Barnabas took that situation, and rather than just pound into John Mark for a wrongdoing committed, he offered an opportunity for something better because he still believed in him. I would submit to you that that's encouragement. Abigail is an important figure in the Bible. 2 Samuel 25. And I even use this as an example of how wives can influence their husbands. If you remember, David had protected Nabal's, which, by the way, is Abigail's husband, and Nabal means fool. So you can have some idea of the character of this guy. David had protected Nabal's land for quite some time, and when he finally came to visit Nabal, Nabal refused him, disrespected David. And David was getting ready to kill Nabal because it was such a shameful, disrespectful event that Nabal did. And Abigail prepared food and rations for David's troops. She came to him very kindly, and she said, Lord, if you do this, your blood will be on your hands, and God has called you for greater things than this. Do you really want to ascend into the kingship with my husband's blood on your hands? Implying like, hey, you are so much better than murdering my husband and destroying a bunch of people. Don't do this thing. You're better than that. I would submit to you that that is encouragement. She's highlighting the good in somebody who's about to do evil. And in doing so, she tapped into his better side, and he took the bait. And, lo and behold, after Nabal died, he came and sought Abigail, and Abigail became one of his wives. So, happy ending for King David. Hebrews 10, 19 through 25. Totally forgot what that is. But go ahead and read it for yourself. I forgot to write it down. But without further ado, I want to give you guys an experiment. I want to give you guys an experiment that I myself have done twice. I find to be, just fantastic. And you'll have to trust me in this. I mean, go ahead and do this, and I'm hoping to get lots of feedback from this particular experiment because it can be that amazing. This is called the Week of Encouragement. And it might seem like a lot, but I would submit to you that it's really not that bad. What it is a 7-day period. So you could say this Sunday until next Sunday, you could do this as an experiment. And every single human interaction, bar none, meaning no exceptions, you are going to encourage that person. You are going to leave that person better than when you found them. And it looks like this. This is the mechanics, right? Eye contact. I'm making eye contact with somebody. I am saying things like their first name, or maybe if it's a wife or spouse, maybe like a nickname or a pet name of some sort, right? Because names have value. Names mean you, individual, I acknowledge you, I see you. You can appreciate and admire. You could call out what a good husband, what a good father they are, what a good student. You might just say, wow, you just have so much life in you. Whatever it is, so long as it's not trite. So long as it's not something like, wow, you have nice shoes, right? But maybe if somebody just bought some nice shoes and you know that they are proud of those, why not say like, hey, I love your shoes. They're awesome, right? That's encouragement. Every single person, and I know this might seem a little extreme, but when you're starting a new habit, especially a habit of encouragement, especially if you struggle with judgment and a criticism, I would say you need this kind of discipline in order to be able to exercise encouragement, right? It's a habit. Otherwise, you're just going to pass people by. You're going to forget about this. They're just going to be numbers, just like random individuals that you don't really interact with, rather than sacred, divine human beings that you have a God-given ability to influence in a positive way. You can even try phrases like, hey, I'm happy to see you. I'm glad you're here. Oh, you again. Hey, something, smile at them. Say uplifting things. Say something about how their presence is wanted and needed and expected and appreciated. And the last thing, once again, like I mentioned before, practice active listening. At least for 10 seconds of your time, ask questions about how they're doing and actually care. Sit with somebody and hold space with them. And I guarantee you over the next 7 days, the more you do this, you'll notice something. You'll actually be happier. Can almost guarantee this. Right? You'll actually be happier because when you do this, just as the golden rule says, people will freely give it back to you. Right? I feed you, and because you're no longer hungry, you can feed me. That's the golden rule in action. So, once again, thank you for your time. I would encourage you, because I know you can do it, 7 days of encouragement. Your spouse, your kids, your friends, the cashier at Hy-Vee or Aldi's or wherever you go, just random friends, people you don't even like, coworkers, everybody, 7 days, 168 hours worth of doing this. And I guarantee you'll have more of a smile on your face by the end of the week. So, thank you. God bless.